Welcome in the latest episode of 5 on the Floor on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for joining us on your favorite podcast app. We're on Podbean, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. We're also on Dash Radio on their Nothing But Net channel. You can join them there every single night at 7 p.m. And of course, that is free. Also free, the 5 Reasons YouTube channel. That's where you can get the Dono Daily every single day at noon with 5 Reasons guests on all South Florida sports, including the Dolphins, Heat, Marlins, and more. Also check out 5reasonsports.com. 5reasonsports.com is where you will find the latest from Brady Hawk and others on the site. Of course, we're getting ready for Dolphins and Canes season. Jazz Santana's got a full Canes preview up there right now, so make sure that you check that out before they get blitzed by Alabama. Also, check out the great sponsors of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. That includes our friends over at Prize Picks. You got to use the code 5, F-I-V-E. We know there's no NBA right now, but there's plenty of other sports going on, including preseason football. Yes, you can go over or under. If you think a coach is going to play a certain guy more than someone else, go over. Just give it a shot on Prize Picks. You can also do the futures going forward, play the Tua passing yards going forward. I'm telling you, he's going to have a good year. And, forget the one interception from the other day. Go to prizepicks.com, use the code 5. You can go all in. You can play halfway with the flex play. Just deposit $20 and give it a shot. Again, that's the official daily fantasy sponsor of the 5 Reasons Sports Network, prizepicks.com with the code 5. And now, tonight's episode.
Yeah. 5 on the floor, ride for my dogs. Where here's the thing, you can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars, wearing bubble frogs. Just like Butler said, you in trouble, y'all. Kept the flow playing, got it all band. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. And Pat we trust, it's power, have the guts. We're here to bring the heat, y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, and Alex Toledo, plus others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network.
All right, Ethan Skolnick back on 5 on the Floor. Here's tonight's floor plan. First, we're going to get reacquainted. It's been a little while since we've been together. Check out The Floor is Yours from last week. I am back from a brief vacation. I've got Alex Toledo. You can follow him at Tropical Blanket. We've got Greg Sylvander. You can follow him at Greg Sylvander. And we've got one of the newest additions to the 5 Reasons Sports Network, our coach on staff here, Sean Rochester. You can follow him, I believe. I never remember handles. Sean Rochester NBA. Is that correct? No, I effed it up. What is it?
At S Rochester NBA. Too many characters to do the Sean in there. I had to shorten it up.
Well, we have too many characters on the show right now. We got 4 of them. All right. So here's what we're going to do tonight. This is going to be informative, but also analytical. I've done a little bit of digging on some stuff going on in Heatland, as I've obviously been checking out what's been going on with the Dolphins. And with the Heat, the big talk the past couple of days was backup point guards. And mostly this is because of a late night Woj tweet that Memphis was getting Patrick Beverley and Rajon Rondo in a trade. And so as a result of that, because Memphis has so many guaranteed contracts, so many similar players that they may be buying someone out, perhaps Rondo, who actually called Jimmy Butler one of his favorite teammates. I know that there was some friction in Chicago, but they were actually also up 2-0 in a playoff series, if you recall, with Dwayne Wade before Rondo got hurt. I can tell you right now that my understanding is the Miami Heat are not in on Rajon Rondo. And I'm going to give you the sort of a blueprint for where they see things right now coming out of Summer League. So here's the first part of this. If you watched Max Strus play in Summer League and you liked what you saw, you're going to see more of it. They view him as a rotation player this year. They view him as the backup small forward going forward. And also, they view Gabe Vincent as the guy who's going to get the first crack at backup point guard on this team. Of course, there could be guys on 2-way contracts. We've talked about some of those. But Vincent is being prepped to be the backup point guard. They know that he has not put it together in terms of shooting and playmaking at the NBA level. The shooting has not been where it was at the G League, but they think he can do it, or they at least want to give him a chance. And that's why they gave him the full contract and why they gave Strus the full contract. So you should not look at them as 2-way players like you did last year. They're viewing them as rotation players. They only plan to keep 14 for now. We can get into the mechanics of the repeater tax and all that sort of stuff, but that is the plan after adding Udonis Haslem. I can tell you there's a feeling within some of the organization that Eric Spoelstra should actually use Udonis Haslem this year, which is something that I've said on this show. If you're going to keep him, there's value in keeping him in the locker room and being a player instead of a coach and being somebody who can be that liaison. But also there are opportunities, and we've discussed this at the end of quarters, in blowouts, in other situations like that, just for a change of pace where Udonis Haslem can still rebound, can still box out, can still set a screen. Okay. And I think that he'll be used more. It's not going to be ceremonial like it was this past season. All right. Beyond that, looking forward, they believe that Victor Oladipo will be back for at some point, maybe the second half of the season, and that may change the dynamic of what their bench looks like, particularly backup point guard. But for right now, I've now been told by two people inside the organization, a lot of our season is dependent on the development of Tyler Herro. They are clearing the way for Tyler Herro now. That's one of the reasons that Kendrick Nunn was not retained. He was viewed as a progress stopper for Tyler, and they view Tyler as somebody that they want to see take the next step. Now, I know I've said on the show, Tyler was going to be traded this offseason. There are all sorts of other issues behind the scenes. The way the roster shook out, Tyler is still here. He's still their best asset. He could be traded at some point. Aggregators stand down. For right now, he's being viewed as the guy who's going to lead their bench unit. And it's an important role, and there's no one else here to do it. There's no Dragic. There's no Nunn. It's him. As far as KZ Okpala goes, all I can say is this. They're still holding out hope. But I think we need to reframe the context here, okay? I don't think there's a starting competition between PJ Tucker and Markieff Morris. The competition was supposed to be between Morris and KZ for backup minutes behind PJ Tucker. Of course, if KZ continues to struggle the way he struggled in Summer League, it's not going to be much of a competition. All right, let's get to it. I've got Greg, I've got Alex, I've got Sean. I'm going to start with one premise here. Even after these conversations that I've had, okay, and even with my trust of the Heat organization, and even though I like the Kyle Lowry move, I like the PJ Tucker move, okay, obviously I like some of what came out of Summer League with Omer and Max in particular, I'm concerned. I look at this roster, and I think it's top heavy. It doesn't have quite the same age dynamic in terms of mix that maybe some past rosters have had. Maybe I'm making a little bit too much of that, but I do see some guys on the top end of the roster in terms of age who may have some injury issues. I see some inexperienced guys, even if they may be 25 or 26, that are still inexperienced in terms of the NBA, and I think that's going to lead to some inconsistency. My view on it is this. I think this is a better playoff proposition than a regular season proposition this year. And my concern is getting to the playoffs in the right seed, in the right health, that you can actually do something. And that's why, if you didn't have the tax concern, I would love to see them add a 15th player, because I think their 15th player might actually play like a 9th player this year. It's not because I feel like Spo's going to use 15 guys. It's because you're not really going to use the Haslem spot much. You got Oladipo out for months, and you got KZ you can't really count on, and you are counting a lot on Gabe and Max, who you haven't counted on in the past. All right, I'm going to go first to Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Mo. Greg, your feelings.
A lot of what you said, I guess we could probably connect the dots on, just based on how they really doubled down on the developmental guys. And, like, there's a part of it that I think you bring up a lot of justified concerns, right? Like there's young players that they're relying on. And if they don't show up, there's going to be holes, particularly if they don't shoot well. I think shooting well can mask a lot of the other stuff that maybe these guys are deficient at. So like, that's the one thing, if it happens, that we probably will look past some of the stuff that these guys can't do. So I think you bring up valid concerns, but I guess I'll just say this. I feel like ultimately, we've talked about this team, like bet on the culture, right? Like, don't go pay Dion Waiters because you can make another guy become Dion Waiters, and so on and so forth. Well, it looks like they're doing that with Max Strus, with Gabe Vincent, with Omer Yurtseven, however that comes out. So let's see these guys produce. I like the idea that they're going to have guys that have the opportunity to outplay their contract values. And so they're betting on that. And if it doesn't work out, there's going to be egg on their face. But truthfully, like at this point, I feel good about the developmental system. So to me, while there are these concerns, if they can just make it to Oladipo gets back, I feel like that they can still finish in the top 3 in the East.
Sean, give me the single biggest concern on the roster right now.
I would say just relying on that inexperience, getting to the point of the trade deadline right around the time that Victor is going to come back. I think that they can assess what they have and then make moves in response to that. If, let's say, for example, if Gabe can't get it done as a backup point guard, then you can go out and get a point guard. Or if Max can't get it done as your backup small forward, then you can go out and get another small forward. But I just don't know if you can't do that, if you can't rely on them, how do you get to the playoffs? Like you said, it's not sustainable to go 8-9 deep for 82 games. You're going to run out of gas. So that would be my concern with the construction as it is right now.
Alex, the point guard spot, we've talked about it. They've been averse to getting real point guards for years, it seems like. And now, they have a real point guard, but he's in his mid 30s. And just sort of like they just did, and they decided with the other point guard in Goran Dragic that he had to come off the bench to preserve him. Lowry missed a lot of time last year. I know some of it was designed, but again, I mean, is there enough ball handling on the roster that you can overcome? Like, let's say Gabe Vincent can't do it. Let's say he's still sub 30 from three, which I agree with Greg's point. A lot of this comes down to shooting because I think most of these guys are going to defend. So if that's the case, do they have enough ball handling? I mean, I thought part of the idea here was that you didn't want Jimmy and Bam to have to be the primary ball handler in most sets.
I do think they have more, top level ball handling. And I think that's part of part of what we're talking about here when we're trying to solve the puzzle of their roster construction and, how it's going to work throughout the regular season. Cause I could not agree more with what Sean just said there as far as, you can't, we can feel good about 8 or 9 guys in the roster, but you got to get through the season. And I agree. First of all, before we started this pod, I was kind of, I see both sides of this, and I was kind of leaning towards Leif's side a little bit. But then the more we talk through it, it's there's so many, I feel great about that starting 5, right? I feel awesome about it. But as far as the logistics of getting through this regular season, I mean, luckily they're going to have an actual offseason this time around. So that'll be great for these guys. Lowry's going to be well rested, as you just kind of alluded to. Jimmy's going to need it. But as far as the ball handling concerns, they have more than they did last year at a higher level. So part of that here is they're going to have to do some creative staggering. And I think that's going to be, Spo's going to have to get creative with how he mixes up this rotation this season. Because, I'm not surprised that Gabe and Max Strus are going to be the backup 1 and 3 to start off the season. And they're kind of just going to get the shot at it. And they're going to end up probably getting, probably Marcus Garrett and Deke Giroux as their 2-way roster spots, if I had to guess. And if 1 or 2 of those guys don't come through, I wouldn't be surprised if Omer gets a spot or one of those 2-way guys get to, a shot at getting a rotation guy there. I want to see most of these guys playing because I agree that the roster construction is one where it's you got to get to the playoffs. That's the most important thing because 3 of your 5 guys that you're going to be relying on the most are on the wrong side of 30, right? And it's all the concerns are on the bench. That's really what we're talking about here. And I don't like that all the, the bench responsibility is going to be on Tyler. You're going to have to play him with another, whether it's Bam, whether it's Jimmy, whether it's Kyle. I don't want Tyler out there leading a bench unit.
But Alex, here's the thing. I mean, so look at their bench, okay? I mean, again, do they have enough bodies is one question. But also, I mean, if Tyler isn't scoring, let's say Tyler has a 3 of 12 night, which he had some last year, okay? I mean, let's say there's a struggle from offense. Where's the offense coming from off the bench? I mean, then you are talking about maybe playing Omer over Dedmon at times, right? It's maybe
I think they're kind of expecting Strus to be, to provide some of that stuff like that bench scoring spark, because I don't think Gabe is there. I think they just want Gabe to be somebody who can initiate action and hit spot up threes and play defense. But I don't know, man. I just think there's a lot of variance and a lot of what ifs when it comes to getting through the season as far as just the bench, because the first 5 I feel awesome about, right? I feel great about that. But the bench is you need Strus and Vincent to hit their threes, and that's that's where there's more variance than anything in the sport of basketball is them hitting threes. So they're just going to have to run out with, lineups where you have probably one of those 3 of your best players out there almost at all times of the game, I feel because I just don't believe that running a bench lineup out there. And I don't think that's going to happen either, because I don't really think that's how Spo works, other than 2 seasons ago when he had that one great bench lineup. But
hockey substitutions. They
But,
just
but he,
gotta
but
get
he
to
has done
February.
it, Alex. I mean, I've talked
he's
about
done
it.
it, but I just don't
did
know
it
that
during-
this is
but
the
he
roster
can't.
to do it with. Yeah.
Yeah, he can't do it this year. All right, so let me go to this, Sean. I'll go to Sean first on this. Let me ask you a question. Let's say Kyle Lowry misses a West Coast trip. He strains his quad. He misses 2 weeks. What does the lineup look like? You start Gabe?
Well, I'm going to probably get some extra sleep. No, I'm just kidding.
We all are.
No, I don't see that. I think you probably start Tyler. We're assuming Victor Oladipo is not there yet.
But Sean, he's not. You know that Eric's not going to want to.
Yeah,
If they're
they'll
counting
do the
on Tyler to
placeholder
fill
thing.
that
Yeah.
role, they're not going to want to jerk around with Tyler's role, right? So I mean, you're not going to start him.
I mean, I guess for that reasoning, you put Gabe there, but in reality, it's probably Jimmy and Bam or that combination initiating the offense. So you're playing Gabe off the ball more than he is on the ball. That's where I think when we're talking
We've
about
seen it.
rotations, I think Alex has said it. Like, it's not linear. It's not like Kyle goes out, the backup point guard goes in. Jimmy is the backup small forward, or he's a small forward, the backup small forward goes in. You're gonna slide guys around, and that's kind of the beauty of what Spoelstra likes to do. It's very positionless in a way. So that's where my concern is less, I guess. But I think you make a good point. The way that he likes to bring guys in when guys are out, it's probably Gabe.
All right, we're going to get some more of this in a second. I'll hold some thoughts because I got some other things that I want to get to you guys on. But I think it's funny. I think we're all coming closer to the same place here than I actually thought we would be, which is fine. But I think it's something we're going to have to touch on the entire season. Before we do, though, just saw this the other day. There was a trade show here in Fort Lauderdale. If you are going back to trade shows, your company's going back to trade shows. We know COVID is still going on, but a lot of people don't seem to care. So make sure that you've got the right exhibit for the people who show up there. But also, if your staff is not back, you got to go to Everything Trade Shows because they can help you build the whole thing. They'll do the full booth build, the design, the graphics, the furniture, the flooring, even some tips to get you noticed. They'll teach you the difference between renting and buying. They're based, again, right here in Lauderdale, but they service all 50 states. So schedule a free consultation. Again, the office is right off of Las Olas. Mention 5 reasons. You get a free booth rendering with it. 954-791-8882. It's 954-791-8882. Again, mention 5 reasons. Get the free booth rendering. And of course, you always get the free consultation. That's everythingtradeshows.com. All right, let's get back to it now. A couple of other things that we want to get into. The Vincent situation, I think, is concerning for Heat fans, not because you haven't seen the flashes from Gabe, but because, again, you haven't seen him put it together. But I will say this: they've invested a lot in him, and typically when they invest a lot in the player, it pans out. Now, Briante Weber, there have been some exceptions that it is not. They brought guys back repeatedly. We saw the little breakout for the Nigerian team for one game. And then it kind of went back the other direction again.
And with that shooting variance.
Well, that's the thing, Alex, though. Like, again, defensively, he competes. Like, I don't think there's any question about that. Like, I feel like just having him in the rotation when you also have Lowry and you have Jimmy and you have Bam, I mean, you have PJ, you're talking about, a lot of elite level defense that you can throw at other teams.
He's going to look even better, to your point. He's going to look even better on defense there, but it's true.
But how is he going to get guarded, Alex, if he's shooting 28% from 3, right? And he's not an elite passer, then how does that work?
Listen, I know you didn't ask me, but I'm diving in here. Like, if you guarantee the contracts of Max Strus and Gabe Vincent for 2 full seasons, that's not just this season, that is also next season. You have locked yourself into those guys, and you've essentially said, we are going to bet that they're going to outplay their contract values. And I know that it's a little video game-ish to me to talk about them as if they are salary slots. But like, if we're really looking at this, like, we also have to acknowledge Duncan Robinson. He has to become a $15.5 million player, whatever that means to you guys. Like, it's no longer specialist. Like, he's going to have to do a little bit more, and we're going to have to see further development there. So Herro, like, there's a part of me that's scared that he's heading up the bench unit, but there's also a part of me that's like, all right, we're about to see what this kid's made of, and then we'll know what we need to do by the trade deadline. So there's part of this that I think you're going to flush out a lot of the question marks, and you're going to know pretty quickly what needs to be addressed. So I don't know. I'm not as panicked maybe as the panel here.
All right. So the panel, Sean, Alex, what was told to me was they view Gabe Vincent as more of a pure point. Not that he's completely a pure point, but more of a pure point than Kendrick Nunn was when he broke in with them. And we know that Kendrick played point guard on that summer league team, and he excelled. I mean, he excelled mostly as a scorer, but he was the point guard with Herro, and he was the best player on the floor, okay, for most of that summer league period. But they view Gabe as having more point guard instincts. I'll give this to you, Sean. Does he have point guard instincts? Because I don't know that I've seen.
Yeah, I hate the label of like a true point guard because I just don't think he's that. And I don't know how many guys around the league are that anymore. You know, it's kind of something that's faded away, and it's more of point guards that look to score, or they're more combo guards or defensive oriented. So, you know, he came in with this billing that he was supposed to be able to shoot the ball. And like we've said multiple times, it's inconsistent. So, you know, if you're looking at those other options behind him, those guys can't shoot the ball. I mean, they've done it in flashes in summer league, but let's relax a little bit on that one. But, you know, I don't see him as a true point guard. I mean, if he were on the floor, like I said earlier, I would have the other guys initiate the offense and let him play off. But if he's not shooting the ball and he plays off the ball, now you got help defense just waiting for you. So,
I mean, to that end, Alex, some of the veteran point guards who could be out there, because then we get back into the money conversation here, but a Rondo and Isaiah Thomas. I mean, they've done things. No, I mean, Isaiah Thomas was top 5 at MVP voting. I mean, they've performed in this league, right?
Bet on the culture.
I like you like poking me with these names.
I'm just saying.
You're good at this.
Are we going to hear? Look, there are good reasons for them to stay under the tax. Okay. There are good reasons. Okay. You want to stay under the repeater tax. We could do this whole thing if we wanted to. It's going to bore people, but there are reasons to do it. Okay. Whatever fans think of it and how much money the Arisons should spend. Okay. But if Gabe struggles for the first month of the season, like if he's unplayable, okay, against quality competition, you are going to hear those names if those names are still out there, right? Like, I mean, so would any of those names help now?
Maybe not the ones you threw out. I just don't like, look, man, if things get really bad and you're just like, we cannot play any of these dudes that we gave a shot, whether it's Gabe or, you know, like I said, presumably they get Marcus Garrett and Deke Giroux as their guys. If all those guys just can't pan out for that 12 to 15 minutes a game role, then yeah, maybe you go after one of those names. But I'd be looking at Beverly. I just don't know if both of those guys get bought out that went to the Grizzlies. I think, you know, Patrick Beverly coming back to the Heat would be everything going full circle, would be pretty funny. I just know what he brings and what he's good at, whereas I don't really know what Rondo is good at other than throwing slick passes that, you know, cute passes for TikTok. I don't know. I don't know what he actually brings impact-wise to the NBA anymore, all right? I understand he was cool for the Lakers, and as far as his shooting went in the bubble, I categorize it the same way as Anthony Davis. It's, you know, do it again. I'm going to go two gods here. So I'm not worried about Rondo and Isaiah Thomas. That's the conclusion I'm getting to here. I think, again, with the staggering stuff, like Gabe should not be, you know, the guy you're running actions through. I agree with Sean. It's like you have 3 guys who you really trust to set up action, and they're all in the starting lineup. Come out with some creative lineups, man. Huh?
Can Gabe be Damon Jones? Like
Damon Jones.
No.
Wasn't Damon Jones an elite shooter?
I mean, he was an elite shooter for the 1 year he was in Miami, and then he wanted a big contract. And basically, they told him to shove it. But look, they've gone through many point guards over the years. I mean, like, and I think all of those types could help in this situation if Gabe became any of them. Like, Anthony Carter was a poor shooter, okay, but Anthony Carter defended and he got you into offense. Okay, the problem with Anthony Carter was once he got paid, people expected him to be Tim Hardaway, and he was not, because he wasn't going to be Tim Hardaway. Okay, but they won a playoff series with Anthony Carter starting against Detroit. Now, part of it is Grant Hill's ankle snapped in half, but they won the playoff series. They swept the Pistons out 3-0 with AC playing those minutes. They've gotten competent play out of a guy like Rafer Alston, okay, who never really had sort of conformed to a system before. They got competent play. They've managed to coax competent play out of point guards in the past. I just don't feel like it, I don't know. I don't know what I guess here's my thing, Sean. I don't know what Gabe is. Like I feel like he's a defender. And then I don't know. I sort of feel like we've been sold something on him that we haven't seen except for one game with Nigeria.
Well, I mean, you got two guys on the staff, Chris Quinn and Anthony Carter, that should be able to mentor him because that's essentially what they had to do.
Right.
I mean, I agree. I mean, you take as much of the load off of him. He's not required to score X amount of points. He simply needs to defend, and he needs to get the ball into the offense, get it to the other guys and let them make plays. That's, it's almost like when you have your backup quarterback in, right? Like you simplify the game plan, just get the ball, run the ball, get it to the tight end, and now we're getting Dolphins talk, but that's a simple truth, like you can't rely on Gabe to play a lot of minutes or do a lot of things. The longer he's out there, the more he gets exposed.
All right. We're going to get to the front court here in a second. We're going to talk some Strus, some Omer, what the roles are going to be for these guys, because again, these are not complementary pieces this year. These pieces are being relied upon on a contender. It's a little bit of a different position to be in. All right. Got to check out another great sponsor. The 5 Reasons Sports Network. Position you don't want to be in is without your CBD. So make sure you check out Therapist Preferred. You got to go to therapistpreferred.com. Use that code. It's still active. 5 Reasons. We make the codes easy for you here. That's the number 5 Reasons. 25% off your order plus free shipping on all orders. Get the CBD sports cream, the strawberry lemonade gummies, the green apple gummies, all available to you there. They've also got the tincture and much, much more. Again, if you work out regularly, you want this stuff. You have trouble sleeping like I do, you want this stuff. Make sure you get it from Therapist Preferred. They were founded in 2019 by a physical therapist to maximize performance and recovery for active people. And again, 100% THC free, 100% THC free, and third-party lab verified. So go to therapistpreferred.com. That's therapistpreferred.com. Use the code 5 Reasons. All right, let's look at the front court here. I think we've all sort of made the comment that this season was dependent on Bam and Herro taking the next step. Bam's going to have to be a superstar. I agree with you, Greg, that Duncan Robinson's going to have to be an extremely well-rounded starter. It's not enough to be one of the best shooters on the planet. He's going to have to be a well-rounded starter for this thing to work. But also, you look at that front court rotation. Again, I'm being told PJ Tucker is going to start. I don't think you want PJ Tucker playing 35 minutes a game during the regular season, but I have a feeling he's going to be one of those guys that Spoelstra doesn't want to take off the floor. And we've seen those before. But Dedmon last year was incredibly effective in his role. How do you think they'll stagger this stuff? Because like you said, they've kind of got to use everybody they have available, right? So are we going to see Dedmon play with Bam, Alex? Are we going to see Omer play with Bam? It seems like that's a natural fit, right? Are we going to see sometimes Omer come off the bench with Dedmon, or sometimes we're going to see Markieff come off the bench and play with Bam? Okay, so all of these different combinations that they could use, they have more flexibility in the front court.
Markieff and Omer.
Well, maybe. Okay, I mean, how do you see him using it? He's basically got 5 front court people, and then there's the ghost of what we thought KZ was going to be. I mean, maybe he gets some spot minutes as a defensive.
Call him a ghost.
I mean, what do you think?
He has been a ghost out there when he has been out on the floor. So you know what, it's fair. But really, it's good that they have options now. I think that's how I feel about it. Even though maybe some of these options aren't the greatest, I feel great about PJ and him being a playoff player. I agree with you. You want to, keep his minutes managed. If you want to have him as a closer, which I completely understand and probably agree with. He's the best option out there, most likely, unless, he really just cannot hit a corner 3 or, isn't getting rebounds for you. I just think like they're going to have all types of things they can do. The Omer and Dedmon stuff, I wouldn't see that happening. I don't think they would play 2 slower bigs like that together. But Omer and Bam just makes a lot of sense. We've seen that mold before. The drop big on defense, shooting big on offense, easy stuff there. Like I said earlier, by the way, I think if you want to play Omer and Markieff together, that would make sense. We've seen Spo go to lineups before where like he wants spacing for Jimmy or for Bam. In that case, it would be for Jimmy to have a driving lane. I just think you're going to have to go, like I said earlier, a little bit creative, use those young guys as innings eaters throughout the season because you sign them to contracts, like Leif said earlier, for a reason. And like you alluded to earlier in the show, Depot's not coming back for the second half of the season. That's another concern. We don't, another thing that's going to have some variance to it because we just don't know how effective he's going to be. So all I see throughout the bench is different levels of concern and different levels of variance. So even though I feel okay about it, I just think there's going to be a lot of creativity that Spo is going to have to implement. And I know he loves all of this stuff. So I wouldn't be surprised if we get all types of solutions thrown out throughout the season at this point.
I feel like Markieff is going to see some minutes at the 5. They're going to try that at some point. I think Dwayne Dedmon is not getting enough credit for maybe what he has the potential to do. I think that they will try to give him extended looks throughout the season. And PJ Tucker, like, I know that when he got to Milwaukee, he was like a 20-minute per game player. But if you look at all the other teams he played on, he plays anywhere from 27 to 34 minutes a game. So I think that you can expect him and pencil him in for somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 minutes a game, and he's going to guard up. Excuse me. Cooper Moorhead wrote a great piece about the things that PJ Tucker will do for the Heat. And one of the things he harped on was about the way that he and Bam can simultaneously switch off and no big wants to back down PJ. Like, that kind of stuff is real. And I think that, to your point, Ethan, Spoelstra is going to rely on him. So he'll be a big part of the front court. And, but you're right. All these guys are going to get a look, and we're going to find out what they're made of. Luckily, they're on minimum contracts, most of them, but it does get tricky if they don't pan out.
Sean, who's going to be the best complement to Bam?
Man, I guess I would say PJ. Defensively, absolutely PJ. Offensively, that's the question. I love the fit Omer has. He gives you that pick and pop ability that's great with Bam, and Bam's unselfishness and the way that he throws passes, the way that Omer has rolled and also sealed down low for like his age. What is he, 24 years old? The way that he seals inside and finishes high, it's pretty incredible for his age and obviously being undrafted and all those different things. So, I don't know if it's going to happen right away. Dedmon can give you a little bit of that, but like Leif said, it's versatility. You have guys that can do different things. So Spo wants to use different pieces in different ways. That's the flexibility that he has that we really didn't have last year.
All right, let's touch on Strus. Sorry. I don't think anybody anticipated going into last season that he would be in this position now, but nobody anticipated Duncan Robinson would be in the position he was in going into his second season with the Heat. This seems to be their developmental trajectory with players. That, again, the first year is kind of a feeling out process. The second year is when they get that opportunity. I do know that a lot of Heat players, including Jimmy, were very comfortable with Max on the floor last year, and they actually wanted to see him play more. We talked about that as the year went on, that he's accountable. The words that I've heard used from him is he's accountable. He's physical. He doesn't back down. I think we saw him take a leadership role in Summer League, which the organization really liked. And now they've given him the contract, Greg. Like they've said to him, you're next, essentially. I mean, Omer is too, but Strus has been here for a year. I think it's fair to expect the most from him of any of the young players right now, even if Yurtsevin impressed in Summer League. The offense, essentially, I mean, you watch those last couple of Summer League games, teams are trying to take Max Strus away.
Oh, yeah. And he had swagger, too. Like that game winner, like that's the kind of stuff you do when you know that you're heads and shoulders above the dude who's guarding you. Like he walked it up. He was bobbing and weaving as he got to his shot. And you want that kind of confidence. I think you're right. Max Strus is the guy of all these minimum kind of younger players that they're investing in. He's the one that we should be having the highest expectations for. But again, he can do a lot of stuff wrong if he shoots 39% from 3 on 5 or 6 attempts or whatever it shakes out to be for him. Like, I feel like that is going to be, and I hate to like make it a make or miss kind of conversation, because there's something kind of cliche basketball sports talk radio-y of me to say that. But truthfully, like if Strus can just hit 39%, we're all good.
What about the other things though, Alex? Like, I mean, if he hits 39%, he's going to be happy. But actually, his percentages from 3 last year were not great. Even though, I mean, he had flourishes, but he wasn't able to sustain it. But he also didn't get consistent playing time. He also didn't play in the most, advantageous situations at times, or play with the top level talent on the Heat all the time. But let's say he can shoot 35% from 3. Is the other stuff good enough? The rebounding, the defense, and all that to be a backup small forward in the league who's going to play 15 plus minutes a night?
I mean, depends how low we're talking about with that 3-point percentage. Because honestly, like I don't really think so. I mean, and look, I'm good with giving Strus a chance. Like, he obviously stood out, and that's what you want to see from guys as they progress in the league. You know, he stood out, and he's gonna deserve, I think, maybe a longer leash than I think Gabe, even at this point, even though they both kind of had similar time. I think Strus has shown out a little bit more, and you know, I just struggle to talk about this because without kind of going right back into the point about variance, because it's like, if he's not shooting threes, I don't know that the rest of what he does is valuable enough. And even though I'm good with giving him a shot, it's just like, you know, do you give Markieff backup three if Strus doesn't work out? I think that's something they could look into and go big if they want. Go
I hate that idea. I mean, look, I hate the idea of Markieff defending threes, though. I don't know.
I'm just saying we're picking from a bunch of, flawed ideas. So that's in a scenario where it just does not work out with Strus, and I'm not really expecting it to go that poorly for him. But like I said before, it's on him to prove that he can shoot consistently too, because he hasn't exactly proven that in the NBA yet.
I'll close here with you, Sean. As we're talking about a lot of sort of possible hits, but some flawed ideas. So if that's what we're talking about here, is this really? And I'm not going to allow Alex and Greg to kind of jump in here because I want to save this for future episode. But since you're here, Sean, is this a contending roster? I mean, if we're talking about so many things that require the variance of Oladipo's return. Can Herro, take a step, when a lot of the bench burden is going to be on him? They don't really have a backup point guard that they know what they're going to get, from, right? We don't know if Duncan can evolve into being that kind of two-way player, that can be, a core $15 million a year starter at this point. All of these things that are going on. You got Max Strus, we got PJ Tucker getting his minute, we got Kyle Lowry at age 36. Is this a contending roster in your view?
Well, to go with what Alex just said, there's a lot more leash for Strus before we even talk about the contending, because there's other options at point guard. We have other guys we can put in the backup point guard. There's nobody else for Max Strus, because the only other person, I'm not even going to say the two letters in his first name because I don't want to put KZ Okpala out there. But the contending, I think their most realistic landing spot is the 4 seed. Could we be better? Could we be the 3 seed? Sure. Could we be the 5 or 6 seed and be in a bad playoff spot because of our inconsistencies in the regular season for all the same things we said today? Absolutely. You can't predict injuries. You can't predict COVID. All those things are variables that are out of our hands. So, if you're relying on these guys, how many of the group do you need to hit to keep the boat afloat, basically? Is it 1? If Strus is good, are we good enough? If Strus and Gabe hit, are we good enough? That's the big question at this point, and I think you let it happen. You see what happens for the first few weeks, first few months, and then assess from there.
But the big point here is, and I agree with a lot of what you just said there, that they need, we could list out like 7 things they need to hit on, at least 4 or 5 of them for this to be the kind of season they want. But again, we all talked about this being in the context of Jimmy's limited window and, putting a team together that can compete right now. I think they can compete. I don't know if they can contend. Those are 2 different things. This is a competitive roster, but contending for the finals in a full season where you got to get through 82, when you're going to be shorthanded a little bit, and there's some questions. But we will save should Udonis Haslem play 10 minutes a night or 20 minutes a night for another episode. Thanks to Sean Rochester. Thanks to Alex. Yes, I know Alex wants to debate about 12 other things we talked about, but we got to get through the next month. And thanks to Greg Sylvander. Thanks to our sponsors, everythingtradeshows.com, prizepicks.com. Use that code 5. Of course, Everything Trade Shows. Use the code 5 Reasons. Get your free booth rendering. And therapistpreferred.com. Use the code 5 Reasons. Get 25% off. Have a good night.
Jamie for MVP.
Thank you for listening to the 5 on the Floor on the 5 Reasons of Sports Network.